Have you ever had someone you considered a brother? Someone who knew your secrets, your fears, your dreams? Now imagine that person turning on you and destroying everything with a single sentence. A sentence so cruel that you feel as if a part of you died in that moment. This is my story. And what happened next changed not only my life, but also showed me who I truly was. My name is Marcus, and this is a story of how I lost my best friend and found myself again. Let me take you back to where it all began. I grew up in a small town in Georgia, one of those places where everyone knows everyone. The kind of town where secrets don't exist because Mrs. Henderson at the grocery store already knows what happened before you do. I was raised by my grandmother after my parents died in a car accident when I was 7. My grandmother was everything to me. She worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table and clothes for me. She taught me about dignity, about hard work, about never letting anyone make you feel less than you are. And then Jake came, Jake Morrison. We met on the first day of kindergarten. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was sitting alone at lunch, the new kid who didn't know anyone, and Jake just walked over and sat next to me. He had a huge smile on his face and a peanut butter sandwich that he cut right in half and gave me half. From that day on, we were inseparable. We did everything together. We learned to ride bikes together, scraped our knees together, got into trouble together. His family treated me like one of their own. Sunday dinners at the Morrison house became a tradition. Jake's mom would make pot roast, and we would all sit around that big wooden table laughing and talking for hours. Jake's dad taught us how to throw football. We spent countless summer nights in their backyard, running plays we made up, pretending we were NFL stars. Jake wanted to be a quarterback. I wanted to be a wide receiver. We had it all planned out. We would go to the same college, play on the same team, make it to the pros together. It was our dream, our shared future. Every night before bed, I thought of these plans and smiled. I had a brother. I had family beyond my grandmother. I had hope. High school arrived, and things began to change, but slowly. So slowly that I didn't even notice. Jake made the football team his sophomore year. I made the junior varsity team. He told me it didn't matter, that I'd definitely be on the varsity team. The following year, his friends began to change. The kids he hung out with were different. They came from wealthy families, families with big houses and new cars. They were the popular kids, the ones who threw parties when their parents were away, the ones who always seemed to have everything under their belt. I noticed Jake started acting different around them. Around me, he was still my brother. But when his new friends were around, something changed. He laughed at lame jokes. He'd go quiet when I joined the conversation. There were times when I'd catch him looking at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. Was it embarrassment? Shame? I pushed those thoughts away. This was Jake, my best friend since kindergarten, the boy who shared a sandwich with me. Nothing could change that, right? My junior year, I made the varsity team. I was so excited. Finally, Jake and I would be on the same team, just like we'd always planned. The first practice was incredible. I caught every pass thrown my way. The coach noticed. He started putting me in the starting lineup, and that's when I felt it. The change. Jake started making little comments about how lucky I was, about how the coach was just being nice, about how maybe he was trying to fill some kind of quota. I laughed at them. I thought he was joking, but there was something in his voice, something cold I'd never heard before. The season went well, really well. I became one of the best receivers in our conference. College scouts started coming to our games. They wanted to talk to me. They were interested. The dream we'd shared, the one we built together as kids in his backyard, was coming true. But now it seemed I was walking this path alone. Jake's performance had stagnated. He was good, but not great. He wasn't scholarship material, and I could see it eating at him. Every time a scout talked to me, I saw his jaw clench. Every time the coach praised my performance, Jake found a reason to leave early. I tried to talk to him about it. I really did. One night, after practice, I asked if everything was okay between us. He looked me straight in the eye and said everything was fine. He said he was happy for me. He even smiled. but his eyes didn't smile. His eyes were distant, as if he were looking at a stranger. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe. So I did. I convinced myself I was imagining things, that the pressure of senior year was getting to us, that when we graduated and went to college, everything would go back to normal. I was so wrong. It was February 14th, Valentine's Day. We had a big game that Friday, but on Thursday afternoon, a group of us decided to go to Tyler's house. Tyler was one of Jake's new friends. His parents were rich. They had a home theater, a pool, everything. I wouldn't normally go to those places. I never felt very welcome, but Jake insisted. He texted me that morning saying we'd never go out together again, that I should go, that it would be like old times. I was so happy. Maybe things were finally getting back to normal. Maybe I was just overthinking everything. I arrived around 4 in the afternoon. There were about 10 guys there, all from the football team, all from Jake's new gang. They were playing video games, eating pizza, talking about Friday's game. I settled in, started playing, started laughing. For a moment, it really felt like old times. We were just guys being guys. No tension, no awkwardness, just friends. Then the conversation turned to college. Everyone was talking about where they want to go, what scholarships they were aiming for. Tyler mentioned that his dad knew someone in Alabama. Brad was hoping for a spot at Georgia. And then someone asked me where I was thinking of going. I mentioned that a few universities were interested. Auburn, Clemson, and USC had all reached out. I tried to say it casually without bragging, but the room fell silent. That heavy silence where you know something's wrong, but you don't yet know what it is. Jake was sitting across from me. He had an expression I'd never seen before. His jaw was tense. His eyes were hard. And then Tyler, trying to break the tension, made a joke. He said something about how I'd probably get a full scholarship just for existing. A few guys laughed uncomfortably. I felt my stomach churn. I looked at Jake, expecting him to defend me like he always did, like he did when we were kids and someone made fun of my hand-me-down clothes, like he did when someone said I didn't belong at his birthday party. I waited for my brother to speak, but he didn't. Instead, Jake leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms, and said the words that would change everything. He looked directly at me and, in a voice so cold it felt like ice in my veins, said, "Let's be real. Colleges aren't looking at Marcus because he's good. They're looking at him because he meets a requirement. That's all he is. A requirement to be met. Diversity numbers. He's not really talented. He's just useful for their statistics. A useful..." And then he said it. The word. That word. The word that has been used to dehumanize, degrade, and destroy people who look like me for centuries. He said it with such venom, such hatred, that for a moment I couldn't breathe. The room fell completely silent. No one laughed. No one moved. Everyone just stared. Some looked shocked. Others stared at their feet. Tyler's eyes widened. But no one said anything. No one defended me. And Jake just sat there, staring at me with a triumphant expression on his face, as if he'd finally said what he wanted to say years ago. I don't remember getting up. I don't remember leaving that house. My body moved on autopilot as my mind tried to process what had just happened. The person I loved like a brother, the person I shared my dreams with, the person who knew everything about me. He simply reduced me to nothing. He took every moment of our friendship, every memory, every laugh, every shared dream, and destroyed it all with one sentence. He didn't use just one word. He meant it. I could see it in his eyes. He meant it with every syllable. I drove home in a daze. My hands shook on the steering wheel. Tears streamed down my face, but I wasn't sobbing. I was just numb, empty, as if someone had reached into my chest and ripped away everything that made me who I was. When I got home, my grandmother was in the kitchen making dinner. She looked at my face and knew something was wrong. She didn't ask any questions. She just opened her arms, and I sank into them as if I were 7 years old again. I cried. Finally, I cried. Deep, painful sobs that came from somewhere I hadn't even known existed. My grandmother held me and let me cry. When I finally managed to speak, I told her everything, every word, every look, every moment. She listened without interrupting, her hand gently massaging my back as she had when I was a child. When I finished, she pulled back and looked me in the eyes. Her eyes were wet with tears, but her voice was firm and strong. She said, "Honey, some people will try to diminish you because they feel small. They will try to break you because they are broken. But you listen to me. You are not what he called you. You are not useful. You are priceless. You are not a box to fill. You are a gift to this world. And what you do next will define who you are more than what he said ever will." I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my grandmother's words echoing in my mind. What would I do next? Part of me wanted to give up, quit playing football, prove Jake right by quitting. Another part wanted revenge, confront him, hurt him the way he hurt me. But there was a third voice, quieter than the others, that kept whispering something different. It whispered that I had a choice. I could let this moment define me, or I could define this moment. The next morning, Friday, the day of the game, I woke up with a clarity I'd never felt before. I knew what I had to do. I put on my school clothes, but I took my gym bag with my soccer uniform. I walked to school as usual. I saw Jake in the hallway. He didn't look at me. He walked right past me as if I didn't exist. His friends were with him, and everyone looked away. The story had spread. Everyone knew what happened. I could feel people staring at me, whispering. Some seemed sympathetic. Others seemed curious, waiting to see what I would do. I went to my classes. I took notes. I ate lunch alone. And then, during 7th period, I was called into the principal's office. My heart sank. I thought maybe someone had reported what had happened. Maybe I was in trouble. But when I walked in, it wasn't the principal waiting for me. It was Coach Williams. He was sitting there with a serious expression on his face. He gestured for me to sit down, and I did, my stomach churning. Coach Williams looked at me for a long moment before speaking. Then he said, "I heard about what happened yesterday. Jake won't be playing tonight." My eyes widened. The coach continued. What he said was unacceptable. I don't care how good a player is. I don't care who his father knows. That kind of hatred has no place on my team. In my management, I suspended him for the rest of the season. I wanted you to hear it from me first. I sat there, stunned. I didn't know what to say. Coach Williams leaned forward and said, "Now I need to know, are you playing tonight? Because I need my best receiver. But more than that, I need to know you're okay." Tears welled up in my eyes, but I held them in check. I looked at Coach Williams, the man who could have remained silent, who could have protected his quarterback, who could have swept everything under the rug, but instead chose to stand up for what was right. I nodded. "I'm playing, Coach. I'm playing." That night, under the lights of that Friday night, I played the game of my life. Every ball I caught, I did so for my grandmother, who sacrificed everything for me. Every yard I gained for every person who ever felt inferior. Every touchdown I scored to prove that my worth wasn't defined by the hatred of others. We won that game, and I was named MVP. When they handed me the trophy, I looked up into the stands and saw my grandmother standing there, tears streaming down her face, clapping so hard her hands must have hurt. But the story doesn't end there. After the game, as I walked to my car, I saw Jake. He was standing near the fence, still in his street clothes, watching from afar. Our eyes met, and for a moment, I saw something I hadn't expected. I saw regret. I saw shame. I saw a broken person who had raged because he was hurting. That didn't justify what he said. It didn't erase the pain, but it made me realize something important. Hurt people, and holding on to anger would only hurt me more. I didn't go to him. I wasn't ready for that. Maybe I never would be, but I also didn't let hatred take root in my heart. I had a choice in that moment. I could become bitter or become better. I chose better. I got in my car and drove home, leaving that chapter in my life behind. Jake tried to contact me several times in the following weeks. Texts, phone calls, a letter delivered to my house. I didn't respond, not because I hated him, but because I needed to heal, and healing required distance. Senior year ended. I graduated with honors. I accepted a full scholarship to Auburn University, not because I met a requirement, but because I worked hard, because I was talented, because I was dedicated, because I was worthy. My grandmother came to every one of my college games. She sat in the same seat, wearing an Auburn jersey, cheering louder than anyone else in the stadium. She became a local legend. The scouts loved her. My teammates loved her. She reminded everyone that behind every athlete is a story, a support system, a foundation of love. I played 4 years at Auburn. I broke reception records. I was named All-SEC twice. And when I graduated, I was drafted in the 4th round by the Carolina Panthers. The day I got that call, the day I heard my name announced on national television, I thought about that moment in Tyler's basement. I thought about the boy who tried to belittle me, and I realized he didn't break me. He revealed me. He revealed my strength, my resilience, my character. But here's the thing. This story isn't just about me. It's about everyone who's ever been made to feel like they don't belong, like they're not enough, like they're only valuable for what they fulfill or the quota they fill. I'm here to tell you that you are more than that. You are more than anyone's limited perception of you. You are more than the worst thing anyone has ever told you. You are more than your circumstances, your background, your skin color, your zip code. You are a human being with infinite value and unlimited potential. What happened to Jake? I learned years later that he struggled after high school. He didn't receive any scholarship offers. He attended community college for a year and then dropped out. He worked several jobs, never finding his way. Part of me felt sad for him, not because he didn't succeed in football, but because he let jealousy and bitterness poison his heart. He lost a brother that day, a true friend, and why? A moment of cruelty he'll never be able to recover from. About 5 years after that night, I was back home visiting my grandmother for Thanksgiving. I was walking through the supermarket and saw him, Jake. He was stocking the shelves, wearing a store uniform. Our eyes met, and time seemed to stand still. He looked older, tired. The confidence he once had was gone. He opened his mouth as if to say something, then closed it. I could have walked right past him. I could have pretended not to see him. But something inside me, maybe it was my grandmother's voice, maybe it was God, maybe it was just growing up, told me to stop. I walked over to him. He looked terrified, as if he was waiting for me to yell at him, to embarrass him the way he'd embarrassed me. Instead, I held out my hand. He stared at it for a moment, confused. Then, slowly he shook it. I looked him in the eyes and said, "I forgive you." His eyes filled with tears. He began to apologize, the words spilling to his mouth about how sorry he was, how jealous he'd been, how he'd been hurting, how he'd become someone he didn't recognize. I let him talk. I let him vent. And when he finished, I said, "I know, and I forgive you. Not for you, for me. Because holding on to what you did was keeping me from being who I was supposed to be." We never became friends again. Some things, once broken, cannot be fully repaired. But we found peace. And sometimes, peace is more valuable than reconciliation. I left that supermarket feeling lighter than I had in years. I had finally shed the weight I'd been carrying. The anger, the hurt, the betrayal. I freed myself from it all. And in its place, I found freedom. Now, as I sit here telling this story, I'm 32 years old. I played 6 seasons in the NFL before a knee injury ended my career. Now, I'm a high school football coach and motivational speaker. I spend my days working with young athletes, especially those from underrepresented communities, helping them navigate the challenges of sport, life, and identity. My grandmother passed away 2 years ago, but her lessons remain alive in everything I do. She taught me that dignity isn't given, it's chosen. That strength isn't the absence of pain, it's what you do with it. That forgiveness isn't about forgetting, it's about freedom. I tell my story not out of compassion, but out of solidarity, because I know there's someone watching this right now who's been called something they're not. Someone who's been betrayed by someone they loved. Someone who's at a crossroads, unsure what to do next. That's what I want you to know. What happens next is up to you. You can let this moment destroy you, or you can let it build you. You can become bitter, or you can become better. You can carry the burden, or you can let it go. The choice is yours. And that choice will define not who you are, but who you will become. My name is Marcus, and this is the story of how I lost my best friend and found myself. But more than that, this is a story about resilience, about dignity, about choosing love over hate, even when hate is easier, about understanding that your worth is not determined by someone else's inability to see it. You are enough. You always have been enough. And whatever you do next, that is where your power lies. So what will you do next? How will you respond to your moment of grief? I can't answer that for you, but I can tell you this. Whatever your choice, make sure it's one that honors who you are and who you want to become. Don't let anyone's words, no matter how cruel or hurtful, steal your future. You are the author of your story. And the next chapter, it's yours to write. I want to share something else with you. Something I've never spoken publicly about before, because I think it's important. I think it might help someone watching this right now, sitting in their room, feeling like the weight of the world is crushing them, feeling like they'll never recover from what someone said or did to them. After that night at Tyler's house, after Jake said what he said, I didn't just feel hurt. I felt something darker, something that scared me. I felt anger, a pure, burning anger that kept me awake at night. I'd lie in bed imagining scenarios where I confront him, where I'd hurt him the way he hurt me, where I'd make him feel as small as he made me feel. These thoughts consumed me. They ate away at me. And honestly, there were moments when I felt scared, moments when I wondered if I was capable of doing something I'd regret. One night, about a week after the incident, I couldn't sleep. It was 3 a.m, and I was pacing my room, anger boiling inside me like lava. I heard a soft knock on the door. It was my grandmother. She came in, sat on my bed, and patted the spot next to her. I sat down and she took my hand. She didn't say anything at first. She just held my hand and looked at me with those wise, weary eyes that had seen so much in her 73 years of life. Then she told me a story I'd never heard before. She told me about my grandfather, about how he was killed when she was 35. Not in an accident, not by illness. He was killed by hate, by men who didn't like the fact that he was a successful black man who owned his own business in the 1960s. Men who couldn't stand to see him prosper. They beat him so badly that he died 3 days later in the hospital. My grandmother was left alone with 3 children to raise. My mother was only 10 years old. I stood there, stunned. I always knew my grandfather died young, but I never knew how. My grandmother never talked about it. She told me that after he died, she had a choice. She could raise her children in bitterness, teaching them to hate the people who took their father, or she could raise them in love, teaching them that hatred destroys the hater more than the hated. She chose love. She chose forgiveness, not because those men deserved it, but because she and her children deserved peace. She looked at me and said, "Marcus, my love, I see that anger in your eyes. I recognize it because I felt it too. And I'm telling you right now, if you hold on to it, it will destroy you. It will turn you into something you're not. Jake hurt you. He betrayed you. But if you let it make you bitter, if you let it make you hateful, then he wins. Not because he broke you, but because he turned you into someone you were never meant to be." Those words hit me like a freight train. I realized in that moment that I was at a crossroads. I could let Jake's hatred infect me, turning me into someone angry, bitter, and closed off. Or I could choose differently. I could choose to be better than what happened to me. It wasn't easy. God, it wasn't easy. But that night, I made a decision. I decided I wouldn't let Jake's worst moment define my entire life. I decided I wouldn't carry his poison inside me. The path to forgiveness wasn't straight. It wasn't smooth. There were days when I'd see Jake in the hallway, and that anger would resurface. There were nights when I'd replay that moment over and over, imagining different outcomes. But each time, I remember my grandmother's words. I remember my grandfather's story. And I chose, again and again, to let go. Not all at once, But little by little, day by day, here's what I've learned about forgiveness. It's not a one-time thing. It's not like you wake up one day and say, I forgive you, and suddenly everything is okay. Forgiveness is a practice. It's a choice you make repeatedly. Some days are easier than others. Some days you have to choose 100 times before breakfast. But every time you choose, you're choosing freedom. You're choosing to live your life instead of living in your pain. I also learned that forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. Many people think that if you forgive someone, you have to let them back into your life. That's not true. Forgiveness is releasing the debt that person owes you. It's saying, what you did hurt me, but I won't let you hurt me forever. Reconciliation is rebuilding relationships, and sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes it's not even healthy. Jake and I never rebuilt our friendship. That bridge was burned, and that's okay. I forgave him, but I didn't need him in my life anymore. These two things can coexist. During my college years, I struggled with something else, imposter syndrome. Even though I'd earned my scholarship, even though I performed well, there was always a voice in the back of my head whispering Jake's words, telling me I was just filling a requirement, that I wasn't good enough, that eventually everyone would figure out I didn't belong. It was exhausting. I'd have great games, catch touchdowns, be praised by coaches, and still feel like a fraud. As if at any moment, someone would pull back the curtain and reveal I had no real talent. It wasn't until my junior year that I finally took the plunge. I started therapy at university. At first, I was embarrassed. Football players shouldn't need therapy. We're supposed to be tough, unbreakable. But I was slowly breaking down inside, and I knew that if I didn't seek help, I would never reach my potential. My therapist helped me understand something crucial. She helped me see that Jake's words had planted a seed of doubt in my mind, and I've been watering that seed every day with my own negative self-talk. She taught me to recognize these thoughts and challenge them, to replace them with truth. The truth is, I had worked hard to get where I was. The truth is, I had talent, dedication, and heart. The truth is, my coaches believe in me because I gave them reasons to believe. The truth is, I belong there, not because of my skin color, not despite it, but because I earned it. This realization was liberating. It was like someone turning on a light in a room that had been dark for years. I started speaking up more in team meetings. I started believing in my own voice. I became a leader. My senior year, I was elected team captain. Me, the kid who 3 years earlier thought he was a fraud. The kid who almost let someone else's words define his entire existence. I was leading 50 other players, and I took that responsibility seriously. My mission was to empower my teammates, especially the younger ones who were struggling with confidence. I saw myself in them, in that doubt, in that fear, and I would pull them aside and say, "You belong here. Don't let anyone, including yourself, convince you otherwise." When I was drafted by the Panthers, it was validation, not because I needed the NFL to tell me I was good enough, but because it proved that the path I'd chosen, the path of perseverance and self-confidence, was the right one. Draft day was surreal. I was sitting in my apartment with my grandmother, watching the draft on TV. When my name was called in the 4th round, she jumped and screamed so loudly I thought the neighbors would call the police. We hugged, cried, and laughed. And in that moment, I thought about Jake. I thought about that basement. I thought about how far I'd come from that broken, humiliated kid. But here's the thing. I didn't think about it with anger. I thought about it with gratitude. Because that moment, painful as it was, set me on a path of growth I might never have found otherwise. It forced me to confront my own doubts. It pushed me to seek help. It taught me resilience. It showed me I was stronger than I ever imagined. Would I go back and change what happened if I could? Honestly, I don't know. That experience shaped me. It made me who I am today. And I like who I've become. My NFL career was everything I dreamed of and nothing like I expected. The speed of the game was incredible. The talent level was off the charts. But I excelled. I worked harder than I ever had in my life. I studied film until my eyes hurt. I stayed up after practice running routes. I built relationships with my quarterbacks, learning their tendencies, their preferences, and little by little, I earned my place. I went from a fourth-round pick who people questioned to a starting receiver who people respected. In my third season, I had my breakout year. 87 receptions, 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns. I made the Pro Bowl. The kid from small-town Georgia, who was told he was just filling a requirement, was now one of the NFL's elite receivers. But success didn't change me. My grandmother made sure of that. After every game, win or loss, good or bad, she called me and said the same thing. Remember who you are. Remember where you came from. Stay humble. Stay hungry. Those words kept me grounded. But then the injury came. 6th year, 3rd week. I went to catch in the middle, got hit from below, and felt my knee explode. I knew immediately it was serious. ACL, MCL, meniscus, everything torn. As I lay on that field, staring up at the stadium lights, I felt fear for the first time in years. Not physical fear, but existential fear. Who was I without football? My entire identity was tied to being an athlete. What would I do if I couldn't play anymore? The surgery was successful, but the recovery was brutal. Not just physically, but mentally. I'd spent 20 years of my life training my body to do incredible things. Now I could barely walk. I'd go to the team's facilities, watch my teammates train, and feel this aching loss, as if I were mourning myself. The doctor said I could return, but it would take time, 18 months at least. And even then, I might not be the same player. Those words haunted me. During this recovery, my grandmother fell ill, cancer, stage 4. The same week I found out, I had to decide whether to continue my rehabilitation or return home to care for her. It wasn't really a decision. She had sacrificed everything for me. Now it was my turn. I left Carolina, returned home, and became her caregiver. I took her to appointments, prepared her meals, and stayed with her during the chemotherapy sessions that left her weak and nauseous. We had a lot of time to talk during those months. She told me stories about my mother, my grandfather, her own childhood in segregated Alabama. She told me about the struggles she faced, the discrimination, the hatred she encountered. But she also told me about love, community, the strength of people who refuse to give in. Those conversations were a gift, a painful gift, but a gift nonetheless. One night, about a month before she passed away, she asked me if I'd ever thought about Jake. I was surprised by the question. I answered honestly that I did sometimes, that I wondered how he was, that despite everything, a part of me still missed the friendship we'd had before everything fell apart. She smiled that knowing smile of hers and said, "That's how I know you've truly forgiven him. When you can think of someone who hurt you and feel compassion instead of contempt." She also told me something I'll never forget. She said, "Marcus, you spent so much of your life proving people wrong, proving Jake wrong, proving the doubters wrong, proving you belong. But honey, you don't have to prove anything anymore. You know who you are. Now it's time to help others know who they are. That's your next chapter. Not playing football, teaching others how to play the game of life." She passed away on a Tuesday morning in April. I was holding her hand. Her last words to me were, "I'm so proud of you, not for what you've accomplished, but for who you've become." I stayed with her body for an hour after she died, just holding her hand, thanking her for everything she gave me. She was my rock, my foundation, my guiding star. And now she's gone. The pain was overwhelming. It was different from the pain I felt when Jake cheated on me. It was anger and confusion. It was pure loss, a hole in my life that could never be filled. I stopped rehab. I stopped caring about football. I stopped caring about almost everything. I was drowning in sadness and didn't know how to swim to shore. It was my old high school coach, Coach Williams, who pulled me out of that darkness. He showed up at my house one day, walked in like he owned the place, and found me sitting in my grandmother's room, surrounded by her things, unable to move on. He didn't lecture me. He didn't tell me to get over it. He just said, "Your grandmother told me that if anything happened to her, I needed to make sure you didn't give up So I'm here, and I'm not leaving until you get back on your feet. I looked at him, the man who stood up for me when I needed it most, and felt something shift. My grandmother had spent the last few weeks worried about me giving up. She knew me so well. She knew I would be tempted to give up, to let the pain consume me. But she also knew I was stronger than that. So she asked for help. She assured me someone would be there to catch me when I fell. That's love. True, practical, sacrificial love. Coach Williams helped me get back on my feet, literally and figuratively. He came every day for a month, making sure I ate well, did my rehab exercises, and didn't completely isolate myself. He didn't try to replace my grandmother. No one could, but he showed me that even in loss, I wasn't alone. That community matters, that we need people. That strength isn't about never falling. It's about getting up even when you don't want to. Slowly, I began to recover, both my knee and my heart. I returned to rehab with a new purpose, not to prove I could play again, but to honor my grandmother's sacrifice. She worked 2 jobs so I could play football. The least I could do was push myself to see if I could return. And if I couldn't, I would find another way to make her proud. After 18 months of grueling rehabilitation, I tried to make a comeback. I returned to Carolina for training camp, but within the first week, I knew my body wasn't the same. The explosiveness wasn't there. The confidence in my knee wasn't there. I could still play, but it would be average at best. And I'd spent too much time being excellent to settle for mediocrity. So I made the hardest decision of my athletic career. I retired. I was 30 years old. Most people think of retirement as something that happens at the end of a long life. For athletes, it can happen at the peak of their lives. It felt like a death, the death of a dream, the death of an identity. I was no longer Marcus, the soccer player. I was just Marcus, and I needed to figure out who I was. That's when I discovered coaching. A local high school needed an assistant coach. I figured it would be something to do while I figure out my next step. But from that first practice, I felt something I hadn't felt since before my injury: purpose. Those young men, many of them from similar backgrounds to mine, looked up to me like I was the king. They'd seen me play on TV. They knew my story, and they wanted to learn from me. But I soon realized they needed more than soccer training. They needed life training. Many of them were dealing with issues I understood: poverty, absent parents, discrimination, insecurity. I started staying after practices, talking to them, guiding them, not just about soccer, but about life, about believing in yourself when no one else does, about overcoming adversity, about forgiveness, growth, and resilience. One kid in particular reminded me of myself. His name was DeAndre. Quiet, talented, but plagued by self-doubt. Other kids would make comments about him, about how he only made the varsity team because the coach needed to fill a quota. Sound familiar? One day, I took DeAndre aside and told him my story, the whole story. Jake, the betrayal, the doubt, the revenge. His eyes widened, and when I finished, he said, "Coach, how did you keep going? How did you not give up?" I told him the truth. I said, some days I would give up, but then I would wake up the next day and try again. That's the secret, DeAndre. You don't have to be strong all the time. You just have to be strong enough to keep showing up. That conversation changed something in DeAndre. He started playing with more confidence. He started expressing himself more. By the end of the season, he was our best receiver. And most importantly, he believed in himself. Watching his transformation reminded me why I went through everything I did, so I could help others overcome their own struggles. So I could be for someone else what my grandmother and Coach Williams were for me. I've been a coach for 2 years. I've also started speaking at schools, churches, community centers, anywhere someone will let me tell my story, because I believe stories have power. They show us we're not alone. They give us hope when we're struggling. They remind us that pain doesn't have to be the end of our story. It can be the beginning of a new chapter. Last month, I received a message on social media. It was from Jake, the first direct communication we'd had since that encounter in the supermarket 5 years ago. My finger hovered over the delete button. Part of me didn't want to open it. I didn't want to invite that pain back into my life, but curiosity won out. I opened it. It was long. He talked about how he'd been following my career, watching me succeed, watching me overcome. He talked about his own struggles, his own failures. He talked about going to therapy, working on himself, trying to become better, and he ended the message with this: I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I don't deserve your friendship, but I want you to know that you inspire me every day. You could have become bitter. You could have let what I said destroy you. Instead, you used it as fuel to become an incredible man. I will spend the rest of my life regretting what I said, but I will also spend the rest of my life grateful that you showed me what true strength looks like. I read that message 3 times, and then I did something I hadn't expected. I responded, not a long message, just a simple one. I said, "Thank you for reaching out. I meant what I said at that supermarket. I forgive you. I hope you find peace." He responded immediately, thanking me and telling me how much it meant to me. We didn't become best friends again. We didn't start hanging out, but we found closure. Real closure, the kind that allows you to move forward without looking back. This exchange made me realize something profound. Forgiveness isn't just a gift you give to someone else. It's a gift you give to yourself. For years, I thought I'd forgiven Jake, and in many ways I had, but there was still a small part of me holding on, a part that wanted him to suffer, to fail, to feel what I felt. Letting go of that last bit was liberating. It was like letting go of a backpack I didn't even know I was still carrying. So here I am, 32 years old, former NFL player, current high school coach, motivational speaker, son of a grandmother who taught me everything that matters. And I'm here today to tell you that no matter what you're going through, you can overcome it. Whatever has been said to you, whatever has been done to you, doesn't have to define you. You decide who you become. You write your story. Will it be easy? No. Will there be days when you want to give up? Absolutely. Will there be moments when the pain is unbearable? Yes. But here's what I know for sure. You are stronger than you think. You are more resilient than you believe. You are more valuable than anyone's hateful words could diminish. And your story, your unique story, matters. It matters to the people who come after you. It matters to the children who need to see someone who looks like them succeed. It matters to the world that needs your special gifts. My grandmother used to say, "Honey, God doesn't waste pain. Every pain has a purpose, if you're willing to find it." I spent years trying to understand what she meant. Now I know. The purpose of my pain was to prepare me for my purpose. The betrayal I experienced taught me empathy. The doubt I faced taught me resilience. The pain I endured taught me compassion. And all of this together taught me that I am not defined by what happens to me. I am defined by what I choose to do with what happens to me. So, I want to ask you again, what will you do next? What will you do with your pain, your betrayal, your struggle? Will you let it bury you or build you? The choice is yours, and it's the most important choice you'll ever make. Choose wisely, choose courageously, choose hope, choose forgiveness, choose love, choose to keep going even when everything inside you wants to give up. Choose to believe in yourself even when no one else does. Choose to rise up. Before I go, I want to leave you with the words my grandmother said to me that night, the words that changed everything. She said, "Honey, you are not what he called you. You are not useful. You are priceless. You are not a box to fill. You are a gift to this world." I want you to hear that today. You are priceless. You are a gift, and the world needs what only you can offer. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise, ever. Thank you for letting me share my heart with you today. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being part of this community of survivors, of fighters, of people who refuse to let their worst days define their lives completely. I see you, I honor you, and I believe in you. Until next time, keep moving forward. Keep believing in yourself, and keep writing your story, because it's far from over. In fact, it's just beginning. Now, go write your next chapter. The world is waiting.